Hello,
Hello.
everyone, and welcome to the Autism Mastermind podcast. I am here with my friend Vanessa. Good morning, Vanessa.
Good morning.
Good morning. And today we have a cool guest today, and we had the pleasure of working with him recently. We have Pat Notaro on today, award-winning director of the Spellers movie. Welcome, love.
Well, I'll tell you there. See, that's a
Yeah,
whole story in itself, though.
that's a whole story. Yeah.
Underestimated the title. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
I'm so
yeah,
curious.
yeah,
I know a little bit about the story of how the Spellers movie came about, but I would love
yeah.
to hear about it.
How much time do we have?
Hey, and go.
And go. Go ahead.
Curtains are gonna start coming across.
There you
Uh,
go.
so I met the Hanleys years ago,
Uh-huh.
and I actually met them through when I was my father passed away in 2000. He was a Sony executive, big surfer. Um, and the people he knew wanted to do something to commemorate his life. And so that's when we got involved with Surfers Healing Autism. And we were doing an event every year at Malibu Beach. Started at Topanga, we moved it to Malibu because there was just so many athletes that we were taking out. And it was called the Pat Notaro Day. Being a filmmaker, surf instructor, it was like, wow, I need to document this. So I started doing small little films for Surfers Healing to help promote their organization and use it as at fundraisers or whatnot. And we were trying to make a movie. And through the process, there was some software I was using made by Red Giant to color the project, and it wasn't working properly. So I emailed the company, and the owner of the company actually called me and asked me what I was doing. And I told him I was doing this thing with surfing and autism. And he's like, well, what do you know about autism? I'm like, well, surfing's fun for them and we all have a good time. He's like, you need to meet JB Hanley and Lisa Hanley. And at that time, they had started Generation Rescue.
Mhm.
So literally, I think it was like the next day I met JB at a conference in San Diego where I saw a lot of doctors speak about, all sorts of things that were fairly new in the autism space. We don't need to go into detail
Yeah.
about
Was
that.
that the Dan conference? Was it a Dan
No, it
conference?
was way before that. It was like a biomed, I think,
I
conference
I
in
remember that. That's when
yeah.
I think my son was super small, but
Yeah.
I think my son's in one of your little short videos you made for Surfers Healing when he was like a little bitty kid, just having the time of his life on the board. So
Isn't that crazy? So
yeah,
it's like
all of
everything comes full
Full
circle in
circle.
life.
Yeah.
Everyone that's watching or listening right now, everything
Mhm.
does come full circle. I mean,
yeah,
like here we are, right?
yeah.
Um, so I stayed in touch with the Hanleys over the years and had done some smaller projects with them with Generation Rescue. And
Mhm.
um, it was interesting because JB called me. We would talk like every 3 or 4 years. And almost 4 years ago or 5 years ago, actually, he called me and he said, hey, can you FaceTime? I'm like, yeah, dude, I haven't talked to you in 2 years. What the hell? And he showed me Jamie spelling, and I broke down in tears because I've known Jamie for a real long time. And it was literally, hey, dude, we're making a movie.
So
Um,
cool.
I'll never forget those words. And then, the movie turned into, we need to have it done in 6 months. It's going to be 40 minutes long. I've been very lucky to have a great mentor in my life, documentarian named Doug Prey that I met through the movie Surfwise that he actually did on the
Oh,
Passports.
I know that movie. Yeah.
Yeah. So I had donated a bunch of footage to that documentary, and Doug's the type of guy I'll text him and ask him questions, and he'll give me advice. And Doug told me a great documentary can take anywhere from, a good documentary 3 to 4 years, a great documentary 4 to 6 years.
Mhm.
And I had to break the news to JB, but I didn't really break the news to him. I just kind of pushed things along. And then along the way, we kept adding families and traveling more and shooting more interviews. And all of a sudden we hit 3 years, and I could tell JB I was kind of pushing buttons at that time. And um, we finally finished the film, within 3.5 years, I think, or maybe it
Mhm.
was 3 years. But you know, overall, I think everyone's really happy with the film. And it's a different documentary. Like originally we wanted to set out to make a documentary for, you know, anybody, you know, anyone on the streets that knew nothing about autism. But, you know, when we got close to finishing it, we kind of let go of that, and we felt like the film itself was best served for the families or anyone new to autism. And that's where, you know, the film has really had its success, because we really did start this revolution with a lot of families. And
Yeah.
you know, I think if you are a family new to autism, you could watch that film or watch the Spellers doc. And obviously autism, there's so many different types of autism, and we tried to have a little bit of every type of autism in the doc. Traditionally, like a documentary wouldn't have 8 or 9 cast members, because you really want the audience to get used to that one cast member or really relate to that one cast member or their story. We had too many stories, but somehow, some way we were able to craft something that that was quite magnificent, and you know, really impact families in a lot of positive ways. And the greatest reward that I get from the documentary is families coming up to me and thanking us for making it, and the fact that their child now is a speller or new on boards. And one in particular that, because I have this organization, Flow for the Love of Waves, we continuing the legacy of surf therapy.
Love it.
This one boy, Sam, we took out this weekend. We had our first event for the season at Ventura. It was incredible, because Sam's on the boards now. He hasn't opened yet, but you could just see it in his eyes. He's a completely different child than when I first met him months ago at Ventura C Street for another surf event we were doing. And that's all we want out of it. Like, no film award or accolades would ever, you know, replace, you know, a family saying that, you know, thank you for what the film's
Oh,
done. And
of course. And I
yeah.
think a lot of people have come up to us and said, wow, I didn't know spelling existed.
Yep.
Two, having all those cast members, it's so relatable to so many different families, because
Yes.
they're seeing their child on a screen, and they're like, wait a minute, I need to see what this is all about. If this family can experience this and listen, or finally get to understand what their child is trying to say to them, why not? Let's try it. And it's easy, and it's not expensive.
Exactly. And it gives families, I think the most beautiful thing, you know, having not been like a part of the movie or anything, but just watching it with my family, is it gives people hope. It gives
Yeah.
them hope, and because communication is everything. When you can finally have a voice, and people have, you know, for my son, from the time he was young, it was people just talking down to him, talking to them like they're like 3 years old when they're 15. But they have so much to say, so much that they can do, right? So I think it opens up a shift in all of society, where now we're going to have to approach this as a motor issue, and not just a mental health issue. These kids deserve to be in, you know, mainstream school and have experiences from the time that they're small. So it's definitely it's a complete shift. It's a hopeful shift, which is what I love.
Yeah, and the interesting thing too is, like, you talk, because in the series, you know, we talk to a lot of young people, a lot of neurotypical students, and they're all about having neurodiverse with neurotypical. And why wouldn't you do that in the first place? Because you don't want everybody to be the same, you know, and the neurodiverse have so much to share with us. And obviously they have, you know, they need a little bit more extra care or somebody there to help them, you know,
They
be
just need more
comfortable and
support.
regulated.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's just more support.
Mhm.
And it's it's interesting, because nobody thinks about this stuff, right? And
Yeah.
it's the spelling thing is so easy, or not easy to do, but it's just
Yeah.
like so simple. It's poking at letters, right?
Yeah.
And to understand the brain and body disconnect and the motor issues and everything. I mean, it's all been like an incredible journey for myself and our team, because, you know, we've all been around it, we've all experienced it, but we never quite understood it. And, you know, understanding it um, is quite important, especially when you're making a series or a documentary about it. But also too, even you know, taking people surfing, you know, understanding that you have to coach their motor to get to the water, and their body might not want to go in the ocean, but their brain
Sorry,
does.
Siri decided.
No.
Siri's trying to be a part of our podcast. I don't know what's going on.
Hey, she
I'm
shows up
trying to shut
every
it
time.
down.
Siri's
Yes.
like, tell me more about spelling. I'd love to learn more.
See?
I
There you
heard
go.
there's a film called Spellers.
So
Yeah,
after
but-
this 3 years went by,
Oh, man.
Yeah.
finally JB's probably like, enough, dude.
Yeah.
Get
He
this
said it
rolling.
needs to be done. So the interesting thing about that is we committed to doing a conference
Mhm.
in Honey, where kind of the whole journey started with the Hanleys, is a conversation like in the book Underestimated. If nobody's read the book Underestimated, you
Mhm.
have to read it.
Yes,
I-
we'll link it. We'll link it in
Yeah, we'll
the
link it on
show
the
notes.
I can't stand reading. Like, I will not read. And I read that book as soon as I picked it up.
Yeah.
And I don't think it was because I knew the Hanleys. It's just the way that it's written. And JB and Jamie wrote that book together, which is,
Mhm.
you know, incredible. But it's just,
Powerful.
it's so powerful. And honestly, like, after the series, after the documentary, I would love to see that book turned into like a Hollywood film.
There
Like
we
it,
go. That's a great goal. I love that. And I
right?
think
There you go.
I think why not? This population deserves to be seen, and they deserve to be seen
Mhm.
widely and by the whole world. And I think you put it out there and you have a vision. Let's, you know, let's make it happen. I would love to see that, because I think it will shift how everybody views the possibilities for the neurodiverse population and these children. Because so many of them just get put into this box and
Yep.
with very little opportunity, when they deserve to have the whole world at their feet. So,
Mhm.
Well, we're doing society a disservice not allowing them to be included, because they're so much smarter than the neurotypical, and they all have these crazy superpowers, which
Yeah.
we experienced while making the doc. I mean, watching Jamie doing these mathematical problems and then him explaining to us, it wasn't in the doc, but you know, how he sees numbers and colors. And
so
so
does
he's
it's crazy, isn't it? My son, you know, my
yeah.
son is one of those. So, and I
Yeah.
never thought, like, I always knew he could do math, but I never thought. So someone, I was at a conference, and actually that's how I know Honey, is through my autism volunteer work. I've known Honey for a while too.
Yeah, she's
But
amazing. I love
so
her.
I was
Yeah.
at a similar conference when she was there, but a group of us went out for dinner, right? So we go out for dinner, and one of the board members for the nonprofit organization I was volunteering for said, go home and ask your son, you know, ask him the day of the, you know, give him his birth date and see if he knows what day of the week it is. And I said, well, why? And he goes, because that's the kind of math my son can do, but he can speak. So I'd be curious to see if your son could do it. And that was when we were newly open on the boards, right? So I go, okay. So I said, all right, you know, Cormac, and I gave him his birthday, and he spells that was a Friday. And so then I give him my birthday, and he goes, that was a Thursday. And then we go through the whole family. And so he can do this crazy math in his head too, which
Yeah.
turns out is a calculus formula, but he sees the pattern in his mind.
Yeah.
So it's wild. Yeah. Very
Yeah.
wild.
And so it's like, just imagine if we were to tap in
Mhm.
to all that, you know. And the interesting thing, I'm going to jump to the series just real quick.
Yeah, we were
because
actually
Yeah,
gonna
we're
say,
actually
yeah,
gonna say, after you made this documentary.
yeah. Well, it's just a story, because
Yeah.
I'll forget. So Victor, that's in the in episode 3, the beer episode that we did
Yeah.
with Golden Road, Victor had never had beer before, and talking to his dad at the screening, um, he's taken this interest in beer, and they'll go and they'll buy different beers, and he'll be able to describe all the different flavors and notes of those of that
That's
particular
rad.
beer.
That's
I'm like,
awesome.
this guy's gonna be a brewmaster, you know?
That's so fun. Yeah.
And he could easily do it. And he was describing me, you know, like, oh, you tried this one, and he was saying it was this and this, and I'm like, man, that, like, he's a savant in
Yeah.
tasting. What do you call those? The the wine.
Oh,
Sommelier.
sommelier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, so I mean, it's like, why not? Why couldn't Victor do that? Like, what's holding him back from doing that? Well, it's society, right?
Yeah.
You know, it's like, let's put everyone in this box that's neurodiverse, and then let all the neurotypical screw everything else up because we're not as smart as the neurodiverse. I mean, there's
Yeah,
so many mistakes we make in this world and so many
that's
problems that
true.
can be fixed.
Well, when our
Yeah.
kids were little, like when Paige was little, and she was diagnosed when she was 24 months old, and I pushed for her to be in typical classrooms.
Yeah.
But they, after a while, they didn't want kids to be in typical classrooms. So they made us autism specific classrooms. But now they're starting to turn it around. So moms have always been
Oh.
parents. They've always been
Yeah.
like, no, even if it's just one class a day or an hour a day, we need our kids to be with everybody. We need to
Yeah.
inclusion is very important. And Paige did not have that her whole entire school career. But now they're starting to do that more in public schools. So,
Yeah, which is wonderful, because that's one of my oldest daughters. She works in the school systems, and now they have what's called inclusion classrooms, which is beautiful. And
Yeah.
I hope that, my next hope is let's bring this spelling and this motor support into the classrooms.
Mhm.
And then that way these kids can be included and get their diplomas and not just be on these certificate tracks. They can, it opens up so much possibility. And so I
Yeah.
love that you made the movie, and then now it's turning into a docu-series, which is
Yeah.
just great. So yeah, we'd love to hear, was it, so it was the combination of knowing the Hanleys for years, then making the documentary, and then that now inspired you to do this docu-series. So it's how many episodes, just so our listeners know?
Yeah. So there's 5 episodes. And, the funny thing is like, um, the Hanleys made the doc. I felt like JB got a little bit of the docu burnout. So after the documentary and the book, he's like, I'm done, I'm out. But you know, I honestly, the doc wouldn't have been as successful as it would have been if it wasn't for the Hanleys. Obviously Jamie, JB, and Lisa, but also Dawn Marie, Gavin, and Dana Johnson. Like, without them, they were so good helping us as a filmmakers along the way to find the right cast members of sorts, or people that would fit, the story that we were trying to tell, right? To fit those gaps and the opportunities. And I mean, we literally took over Dawn Marie's business for, 3 years. And,
Mhm.
you know, you guys experienced that firsthand, Melinda. I mean,
Yeah.
like, there wasn't a day that you'd go into the clinic and we weren't there.
Yeah.
But it was cool because, I mean, we were in the trenches, right? We were there when DM was really like starting to pick up momentum, and, DM and Dana, they're just like a perfect team. And so what happened after the doc is when it aired on the high wire, we knew that over 5 million people had watched it authentically. And DM and Dana are like, well, what do we do next? I'm like, well, we tried all the film festivals. And I think a big reason why some of the festivals we didn't get accepted, or we didn't win awards, is because it might have seemed like a propaganda piece of sorts to some people, because it was so much about spelling and the method. And I don't think the judges, the people that are the ones that make those decisions, truly understood how powerful the speller's method is, and how much we take for granted our ability to be able to
Yeah.
communicate, right? And not truly understanding apraxia. And
Well, it's
that's why,
easier for them. It's easier for them to just pass that one so they don't have to
yeah,
do research on it and bring in something that they already know.
something they already understand,
Yeah.
right? And there is one film that was accepted to Sundance Shorts,
Mhm.
which is it has a speller in it. And it's one story, but ours, it wasn't like it was aggressively you know, trying to speak the message of the Spellers method, but it really like it was a blueprint of sorts, right? For anyone to be able to build their own house or home, in the autism
Exactly. And
world.
and
Yeah.
you should say yet. And
Yeah.
that's part of what I love the High Wire. I've been watching it since its inception, and I love that they'll take on things that nobody knows about, and they'll put it out there into the world, as well as, films, books,
Yeah.
different takes on what's going on in the world. So I love watching that. And so I was so stoked to turn on that episode that week and go like, I know these people, like this is rad, and this is like going to help forward the movement for all of these kids, my son included. And
Yeah.
so just beautiful. And so I think you keep going, and you never know, right? You never know when you just,
Mhm.
sometimes it's like planting a seed and you never know what's going to grow from it. So I always like to say not yet, right? Because you never know. There might be another
Oh, I
film that
like
comes
that.
out that
Yeah.
makes it to the film festival
There
scene.
you
So
go. I know. So
Well,
you made 5 episodes.
yeah. Well,
What-
so the doc's free on YouTube now, right?
Oh yeah,
So
that's right.
there's a non
we'll link it. We'll link it for our listeners
yeah.
to see. You have
And
to watch it, you guys. You have to watch it.
I think it's up to 20,000 something views. I mean, unfortunately, there's enough views on it where there's commercials. So noticed that yesterday. But if you're
That's all
interested in
right.
a really nice pillow, that's like one of the first commercials you'll watch.
I know it's always random, the commercials they show you
Random.
on YouTube, and it's
Yeah.
like and they cut it at the worst timing. You're like, wait, it's like not a natural break
So
at
if you
all.
pay
Yeah.
for YouTube, which we do, then
Yeah.
Yeah.
there's 0 commercials.
Oh, okay, good. All
Yeah.
right. So just so you know, if you pay for YouTube, you won't
Just
have
so
to.
you know that, and you
Yeah.
can also get
Yeah.
your local channels.
Yeah.
That's
If
how we get our local
yeah.
channels. And it's expensive, but whatever.
Yeah.
We get our local channel. So each episode is
Yes.
it's not, they're under half an hour.
Yeah, the idea is to create a series of sorts where it's a docu-series, and technically a docu-series an episode's 22 minutes
Okay.
because the rest of the episode is commercials. Um most of them right now I think are timing out around 25 minutes.
Okay.
So the idea, the Spellers Freedom Foundation, which is the nonprofit that was created by Jamie, and some of the cast members that are in the doc decided to put the doc for free on YouTube. And then the idea is the fact that the doc is free on YouTube, will hopefully help us drive traffic towards the actual website that we have. It's called underestimated.tv, which is a physical website that we created our own streaming platform. And so every week a new episode will be posted, and I think it's, what was it, 24.95? I don't know.
Yeah, right now it's 24.95, and then
Yeah.
it's at the end of May
Right.
is
Then it
when you're
goes
gonna
up. Yeah.
launch the first one. I think it's May 27 and
26 or 27th. Yeah.
27, and it's
Yeah.
called Underestimated: The Heroic Rise of Non-Speaking Spellers.
Yep.
So you can pre-order it now and save you a couple of dollars, which is
Right. Yeah.
cool. Or you can come over to my house and view it with us.
Well, well, we do have to pay our investors back.
Yeah, I know.
So and we're not done yet. So the
Yeah.
intention is, I mean, obviously, like the documentary, there was no intent to make those monies back by the investors. It was
No.
purely to get the message out there. But with the series, we do have to make monies back to pay the investors, and hopefully enough where we can do a second season.
Yeah.
And the more stories we can create, the more we can push the revolution. And it's obviously like, it's hard asking people to pay a nominal fee to watch something that should be for free, because this is access to information, to help families. But unfortunately, we're not funded by any state or government agency, although we should be, because all this information should be for free. But there comes, and I don't want to go deep into it, but I want people to understand that, like, purchasing the series will help us pay our investors back or pay them some back, but
Yeah.
hopefully allow us to create a second season and keep pushing, the needle forward, because there's so much more out there as far as stories. And we saw what the documentary did and how, further, the documentary pushed the revolution. In a way, I think it really started the revolution, right? Like I
Right.
always envisioned, at the end where Jamie says, let the revolution begin, that was something I really wanted Jamie to do on his own, and he was able to do it and type on his own. And, that's exactly what it is. So the series, we dive into some of the subject matters that we weren't really able to dive deeper into. And we also took some of the original cast members and some of the supporting cast members that were in the doc, or maybe just somebody you saw in the background, right? Another speller, and we actually shaped a story around them. So the first episode is about education, and it's about relationships a little bit, and features Madison from the doc and her experience in the school system versus Elliot.
You want to
And
know a funny, can I interject a
yeah,
funny story about
yeah,
Madison?
I'll talk all
So,
day.
so,
So you got
so,
to tell
so
me
when,
this.
so
Oh,
will
you're
I.
in the
So
right company then,
yep,
because we talk all
around the
day.
right people. So
Yeah.
when I was really young and I'd first moved to San Diego, I had so I had a small daughter, and I thought I'll go get child development. I want to teach preschool, right? So I start teaching preschool, and Madison was in the class I was the assistant teacher in. And
Wow.
so when Don Marie, when the Spellers movie and all of that was coming out, and I said, "Can you ask Madison's mom if she went to this particular preschool in this time?" And then Don Marie said, "Well, yeah." And I go, "Oh my gosh, that is so weird." So this is like my first daughter. This is before I knew anything about autism, and she used to be in that class, and she loved wearing like her Disney dresses and all the things, and you could tell there was something going on, like definitely the autism. But I was
Yeah.
just like, what a like you said, nothing in this world happens by accident. You're put in
No.
places for a reason. So
Yeah.
here we are like 2 decades later with her in this
Oh
docu
my
series.
gosh.
How rad is that? So
That
It's
is cool.
incredible, right? Well, it just means, like, it just proves that we're all meant to be where we are too, right?
yep.
Mhm.
It's I feel like life in a way is it's definitely like a roadmap, and it's just a matter of what road you choose and how fast you get to your destination.
Yep.
Obviously, I'm not done yet,
Yeah.
so I'm gonna take
Yeah.
as many side roads as possible.
I'm excited to watch that episode because
Yeah. So
I
that's on education,
because
and yeah.
because us
Yeah.
ladies stick together. So Paige is excited to watch that episode too with Madison
Yeah, and
and
like
Elliot.
we don't we don't and the like we're not Michael Moore filmmakers of sorts. We're not pointing the finger at anyone. We're the way that we're telling our stories is we're letting people be aware of the problem and ways to fix it and what it's going to take to fix it.
Solution
Versus,
driven. Yeah, it's
yeah,
solution.
yeah, solution driven. Oh, I like that. There's a lot of things I'm learning from both you ladies that I'm gonna actually use. You're
Stop by
making me
anytime.
smarter. Yeah. Um, but that episode it was interesting too, because we spent so much time shooting that, editing it and polishing it. And honestly, I got really sick of it. But then now we go back and look at it and we're like, wow, this is so good.
Mhm.
Um, episode 2 is about Cade, and um when we finished shooting Cade during the documentary, he actually was diagnosed with a rare form of cancer.
Yeah, followed their journey. What a
Yeah. Well, we
powerful.
didn't it was after his recovery.
Yeah.
Um we were gonna follow him through his chemo and everything, but we decided not to because he he wasn't doing so good, and
Yeah, privacy
It's
and
hard.
yeah.
yeah, I mean they lost him a couple times. But the most important thing is him being able to communicate and advocate for himself with his doctors,
Mhm.
and letting his doctors know exactly what was going on with his body, especially during the chemo part, because he received such high doses of chemo um, to get rid of the cancer, where I mean, his immune system was completely shot, and he got really sick a couple times. But the funny thing is like the doctors didn't question his ability to communicate. They looked at it as it was, Braille or anyone else, that needed a communication device. They didn't question anything. And, the doctor, I'm giving away the episode, but, his main doctor, oncologist, he, never questioned his ability to communicate. He knew as soon as he started, answering his questions, he knew that everything he was saying was his words. So you go back to these people, and even like someone that commented on the YouTube channel about how it's not, it's facilitated communication and it's not their words. It's like, man, how, like, these people are just such dark souls.
Let
Yeah.
them
First
do
of
that.
all, don't read comments. That's
Yeah.
the rule number one in social media.
Well, Dana responded to that. I was having a really
Don't
hard
respond.
time.
You can't
Yeah.
respond. You just delete.
Yeah.
My favorite button.
Goodbye.
But I'm sure Dana did a really great response
Yeah.
to that, because
Yeah.
I think we've all been met with that, and I'm just like, okay, that's fine. You can have your opinion on that, but I know what I've seen, and if it allows my son to communicate and it reduces his overall frustration, that's the method I'm going with. So
Yeah,
you
who
can be a part of
cares,
it or
right?
not.
Yeah, you're not.
But I think it goes back to communication,
Yeah.
how we just take it for granted,
Yeah.
We do. We
Yeah.
do. So what's episode 3 going into
Oh,
episode
3.
Oh,
So 3 is the episode that Paige is in. Yep. Get on
Yes,
board.
yes,
Yeah.
movie
VIP.
star.
Here's
Yeah.
our for our YouTube viewers. Here is
Yeah.
the product that they made in episode 3.
Get on board hazy IPA
Yeah.
from
Yes.
Golden Road Brewing. You can get it at I believe here Stater Brothers or Bevmo.
Ralph's, Bevmo,
Ralph's,
it's
yeah.
everywhere.
So look for it in Southern California, and then wherever else you are, request it. Request
Yeah.
that they carry it. I've already got my dad at his favorite local sports bar saying that they should have it on tap there. So
Awesome.
Yeah, that's
It's
cool.
actually a really good beer too.
Yeah,
And
it's nice. Yeah.
that episode's one of my favorite episodes because myself and the rest of the team, we like beer. So and when they decided to do a hazy, it was even better. But that episode's all about inclusion and how easy it is to implement inclusion into the workspace. And we're hoping from that episode, a company or corporation can see it. And, obviously the first thing they're going to say is like, oh, wow, we want to look good. But then they realize how powerful inclusion can be. And the brewmasters were blown away by the Fab Four. We called them the Fab Four, or our 4 spellers, and how, they all agreed on the same flavor profile, which never happens in the brewing world, and how they all got behind the message of they wanted the actual beer to have. And that episode was fun, and it was different. It's different from the rest of the episodes, right? Because the rest of the episodes, it's not that they're depressing, it's just we're having to talk about things that,
Hard things.
hard things to talk about. Exactly, that's a good way to say it.
more controversial type
More
thing.
controversial. And the beer one, that's why I like the opening title sequence. It's just fun and kind of feels like a Guy Ritchie film. It's really graphical. But yeah, that episode, we actually premiered it at the beer launch party last week, and it's pretty awesome. And it was a fun one to be a part of because it was like a breath of fresh air. Meg Gill, the founder of Golden Road, she actually has 2 kids that are on the autism spectrum. Her boy was just newly diagnosed.
Oh, okay.
Gigi, who's new on the letterboards and spelling, it was incredible to witness her. I think she's like 4 years old, and her spelling.
That's when we need to start with them when they're young. Yeah.
Well, exactly, because there's a certain amount of PTSD, right, that our non-speakers develop over time, and I think it just gets worse and worse. And I've noticed that working with younger spellers and older spellers, and the PTSD is different with older spellers, and then the PTSD from the classroom environment that they can develop from how people are talking about them behind their backs or in front of them.
Like
and
right
treating
in
them.
front of
Yeah.
them. Like, yeah, we've all
Yeah.
gone through that. Like I
Yeah.
many times they were even be brazen enough to do it when I was as a mom in there observing the classroom. They
Yeah.
would do it, and I'm like, he can hear you. And this is
Yeah.
before we knew about
Yeah.
There you
spelling.
go.
know?
Season 2, episode 1, Young Spellers.
Yes.
Well,
There you go.
so hopefully if season 2 happens, we only need to sell 24,000 subscriptions.
And you're going to.
Yeah.
We're
Hey, you
going to
will. I
help make
mean,
it happen.
I was
Yeah.
gonna say, you keep saying that it's expensive and it should be free, but
Yeah.
for $25,
I know
Skip
it's not
your
that
coffee
much,
for a
right?
so
week.
cheap. Like
Yeah.
that's cheaper than some like
Yeah.
an AI app is like $40.
Yeah,
Well,
skip something for one time in your
And
life.
you can watch it over and over again. You can watch the
Yeah.
series. You can have your family over and say, look at what we can do
Yeah.
together.
Yeah.
You know?
And if
Gift
you
it to
don't like
people.
it, I'll come over and wash your cars or something, right? Like have some.
Okay, so right now I'm gonna say that I really don't like it. And we have 2 cars, thanks.
Oh,
He's such a smart aleck. Yeah. So what
So,
about
yeah, that was
episode 4 then is like, let's get into episode 4.
ooh, 4. 4 is, man, there's gonna be a lot of comments about this one. Episode 4 is about Down syndrome and non-speakers, and Darcy Day is one of the main, well, obviously her son is Brady is the main cast member, but Darcy plays a big part in that. She, I think, has one of the only spellers clinics that solely focuses on Down syndrome in Phoenix, Arizona. And many of her spellers are new, emerging on the letterboards, but she does have a couple that are open. Obviously, Brady's open, and Brady's been working with Dawn Marie for some time. That one is probably one of our favorites right now, just because it's so different, right? And I've never had the opportunity to work with the Down syndrome community, and I've always been very interested to learn more about Down syndrome and become a better person to better understand Down syndrome, right?
Yeah, because it's giving them a voice too, and it's showing that how important, addressing the motor issue is, and just how capable these individuals are. Like, doesn't matter. And I love the work Darcy's doing. My oldest daughter actually right now, and she works with the autism population, and she's working in a school with a little girl who has autism and also Down syndrome together, and so she's very affected by her motor. So something like this is game changing. Yeah.
Well, it also gets into unreliable speech, right? And then also Down syndrome before they're even born, they're given, labeled with an intellectual disability. And that was created by Dr. Downs in the late 1800s. So I always thought that's quite interesting how this definition has existed for so many years and hasn't been changed at all. And it's being given I don't know, labeled of sorts, and with before even understanding, or being able to communicate anyone to who you really are. So that episode is like I said, no disrespect to the other episodes, they're all my favorite, but that one to me I think is one of the more interesting ones because it's a topic that hasn't really been talked about much. And I think Down syndrome is obviously easily more recognizable in society, and that one I'm hoping really upsets a lot of people, right?
Gets them talking. It should be getting them talking and opening up their eyes and their minds to think about a diagnosis in a different way. I think a lot of our kids too with autism, they do, like, the school districts will and certain professionals will try to push them into the intellectually disabled label when it's just like, no, I know, we know they understand, but I hope that it shakes things up, and I hope people start talking about it, because what did they say? All press is good press, right? No matter, it gets people talking about it. So
exactly. And I think too, with that episode, we did a round table with some of our autistics, non-speakers, and Down syndrome, and we call those dyads. Dyads is just when it's two. When it's more than two, we call it a roundtable discussion, and we try to have that in all our episodes, where it's just a moment of a conversation. And that one's really interesting too, because it's the first roundtable discussion of sorts where you bring autistic spellers with Down syndrome spellers communicating and talking about how, important communication and spelling is for both of them, and how they could be working together as a whole. And episode 5, that one right now, is difficult, and we're having a hard time with that edit, but I know we'll be able to pull it together. It's about siblings, because there's so much to talk about that. Obviously, siblings, it was we wanted to end the series on something that was a little bit lighthearted, but I don't know if this particular episode will be.
The
I
siblings
don't think it is.
The
Yeah,
siblings experience a lot. My son he's the youngest of 3, and but I've got to say the sibling experience, and for each one of them, it's different, right? And they all have a story to tell, and it impacts their life. I personally think through all the challenges, it's made my daughters better people, and they've both chosen to work within the community, which is really cool. So,
well, so there you go. We didn't meet one sibling that was upset or angry at their brother or sister, with extra needs, and it was quite interesting, and I started realizing that a lot of them have found their sense of purpose in life that many of us are looking for our whole lives sometimes, right?
dude, I'm still looking, and I'm in my mid-40s.
Right?
Hey, Vanessa, I'm a new 50.
Yeah. I think we're doing it, but so it was really interesting how their whole lives have pivoted towards something in the space of either becoming a communication partner, or we have the Eng family, the oldest brother. He created an app with his brother, a spelling app.
I love that app. I have that app. Yeah.
The new one?
I don't have the new one. I have the older one, but I love it. It's one of because you can tell that someone that actually lives that life helped create that app. You can tell. It's one of my favorites.
Yeah. So they're revising it, and they want to release it for free,
Cool.
and it's I mean, I find that incredible. So, but yeah, so episode 5, it'll come together. Like literally before we jumped on this call, I was talking to Evan and trying to walk through it. So, and that kind of takes me back to, our team, and none of this would be possible without the incredible team that's come together. And obviously Dawn Marie and Dana Johnson are incredible people. I've learned to become a better human, more patient human because of them, and obviously our spellers. And I think like that is the biggest message, is like we all need to slow down. And if we just slow down a little bit, then we can be more accommodating to our non-speakers, right? And that's like their biggest message. And we all need to slow down. Like we're going way too fast.
Agreed.
We all have a tendency to say things without realizing that we're actually saying them. So it's taught me to be a better person and actually think about what I'm saying and slow down a bit. But Dawn Marie, Dana, Evan Rogers, who's been incredible as far as helping pull these edits together and help produce the series. An interesting story going back to the documentary. We committed to a conference that Honey was doing, and we literally had 6 weeks it was either 6 or 9 weeks. I want to say it was 6 weeks.
Oh, was that the MAPS conference?
The first one, years ago, before Honey joined MAPS. And it was we had 6 weeks to cut the documentary, and we hadn't even started it yet.
Oh wow. No pressure.
No, and Evan was able to do it. And he had started editing it before, but then we kept shooting, and and I started editing it, and then it was just too much for me. And then so I reconnected with Evan, and I met Evan through Dathan Graham, who's always kind of been my partner in crime. Dathan shot the doc, shot the series. Jeff Henson, who's also one of our camera operators, cinematographers, also camera assistant, but he was there, you know, in the trenches during the documentary. He also did sound on the documentary, and then we were fortunate enough to have a budget for audio on the series. So we had Matt Silver and Taylor Coe able to do audio, and then Tyler Allison, who also operated mostly on the episode 3. So it's been incredible just having a really strong team to make this all happen. And you know, we've definitely have done it, you know, with a shoestring budget of sorts, but you know, the production value, I think, especially with the series, it's still there. It's still there with the doc. And you know, we really try to pay attention to every single detail. And honestly, like if the series were to sell to a streaming service, you know, I mean, I guess that would be wonderful, because maybe, you know, we would have a bigger budget to put into the second season. But then again, I love the fact that this is all independently being released, right?
I love that too. I love that mission about
Yeah.
it, and I
Yeah.
love that it's grassroots. I love that
Yeah.
the board is made up of non-speakers. Like
Yeah.
the whole thing
Cool.
is really cool, and it is a revolution, and
Yeah.
you're a part of it, and
Yeah.
you never know where it's going to go. You never
Yeah.
know. And
Never
so
know.
I think it'll end up where it's meant to end up. The people
Yeah.
that are supposed to see it will see it, and
Yeah.
yeah, so thank you. I mean, we're just like we're so proud to be a part of it too.
Yeah.
Just as
I
moms.
know.
So yeah, thank you for being a part of our community when you didn't have to be. Thank you for, you know, your mission and the work you've done, and allowing, you know, kids like ours to have hope and purpose in their life. I think if anything comes from it, if we can just have this ripple effect of families knowing that, you know, your kids do have, you know, potential and possibility, whether they speak or they don't speak. And to me, like it should be treated the same as someone who's blind or deaf,
Yeah.
and stop discriminating against our children, because they're in there and things are possible, and they are going to be the revolution for sure.
Absolutely. Well, it's an honor to be a part of the Spellerverse, right?
Yeah, spellers
And
verse. Yeah.
There you go.
and you know, I have to thank all the spellers for allowing us to, you know, be in your lives and be in your way of sorts, but then telling your stories, because you know, your stories are important. And you know, we're definitely at the beginning of something wonderful, and you know, it's not slowing down. And I hope, you know, once I pass on and move on from this earth, that, you know, future generations of filmmakers, you know, continue on telling these stories, because they're so important. And truly, through, you know, the craft of storytelling through film, you know, I think it's definitely helped the revolution. And that's why it's so important for people to get involved, sign up for the Underestimated TV Instagram account, and you know, tell people about the series.
Yeah.
Not because we want to do a second season, but stories are really important.
Yeah.
And each one of these stories is going to relate to, you know, a certain family member or family, and it's going to do exactly what the documentary did. And if anything, send the link to the documentary to people that you know that could really use, you know, hope. And hope, you know, it's a double-edged sword, right? That's what they call it. And I remember JB had put hope in the book, and it upset a lot of people. But honestly, spelling is hope. You know, without communication, there is no hope. And here we
I
are.
love that as a title for, like, you know, spelling is hope. Like,
That's right.
but just keep going, keep continuing this. And it's been so great getting to know you and talk to you more. And I can't wait to see what's going to come when all of these episodes release. So let's go.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you.
Thank
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Have an
Bye.
awesome day, guys.
You
Bye.
too.
Yeah, you too. Bye.